How you going, guys? Curtis from Cutting Edge Engineering. Today's job, we're going to be continuing on with our Franna crane project. Today we're going to be pulling out the motor. So we have got a lot to do, but the first thing I need to do is try and get the boom up. Because the way the boom is shaped, the winch block on the back of the boom is actually over the top of the engine, and I can't get clean access to lift the engine straight out. I do need to try and get the boom in the air, so I've got room to do that. So I'm just going to see if this thing will start one more time. If not, I'm going to have to remove the inlet from the inlet manifold, feed diesel down that, and hopefully get it started enough that I can get the boom in the air. That ain't starting, so I'm going to take the crossover pipe from the turbo to the inlet manifold. I'm going to remove that and feed diesel straight into the inlet, and hopefully start it enough by spraying diesel into it, I can get the boom in the air.
Oh.
Will it start again? And that's what is happening at the moment. If I'd have left that running for another 2 or 3 minutes, it probably would have turned itself off. But it doesn't just shut down automatically. It's like you literally turn off the fuel, it drains everything out of the pumps, and the motor just stops. So we got the boom up out of the way, so we're going to get on to pulling apart everything to take out the motor. In the bin. So we're not actually putting the handrails back on the Franna. The only reason they are on there is because this came from a mine site, and that is to stop people falling off it when they're working on it. So because I don't want to work on this ever again after it's finished, I won't be refitting the handrails. So the next thing I'm going to do is remove the muffler and the air cleaner. This bit nearly comes out by itself. Another bolt. Going.
That's just all rust.
Yeah. Right, with all that stuff out of the way, I'm going to get on to draining the hydraulic tank and then the radiator. Next to that, we'll drain the core. Pressure out of the system.
Whoa!
So now with the fluids drained, we're going to pull out the radiator. That looks like a piece of exhaust tube. Now that we've got all those parts out of the way, I am going to set up a gazebo so I'm working in the shade. I'm going to go through and take off any of the wiring, fuel hoses and hydraulic lines off the engine. Rubber boots holding it down. Gotta get those out. Now that I've got the gear selector unhooked from the transmission, I'm going to go back to the front of the motor so I can remove the hydraulic lines that go to the pump. I know why the diff's full of water. Righto, so we did figure out why our diff is full of water, and it's because the breather tube is actually missing. Someone might have knocked it off or it just fell out. No one ever picked up on it. So every time it rained, water goes straight into the diff. We've also got the main pressure hydraulic line from the pump that is being rubbing on the bottom of the radiator, so it is also going to have to be replaced. If I was just to let something like that go and we got the crane running again and that blew, that's potentially when you get engine fires because hydraulic oil goes everywhere and things burn. Ugh. It's gonna break. Because I'm removing the transmission with the motor, I do need to unhook the tail shafts for the front and rear diffs. Once I do that, I just need to undo the engine mounts and then I can pull out the motor. Come on.
Hey.
Righto, let's do the front ones. Oh, why are they so tight? And you?
We're busy.
So all the bolts on the engine mounts are extremely seized and they are quite difficult to access. We're just going to use a gas axe and cut them off. So I've cut all the center bolts out of the engine mounts and the gearbox mount. Hopefully I can just lift the motor out away from them. If not, I might have to go back under and take off the rest of the bolts on the outsides of the mount and try and get it to come out that way. Righto guys, so that's the engine and transmission removed from the crane, come out pretty easily. As you can see, it is extremely dirty and there are a lot of oil leaks. So before I wash down the motor, I am going to go through and check for all of the oil leaks. Once you wash them, you wash all the evidence away of where they came from. So we do have a pretty bad one on the bottom of the transmission. We also have the rear main seal, looks like it's leaking because the flywheel is a little bit wet. And the front main seal is leaking, and there are also leaks around the timing covers. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to get the engine and transmission cleaned down, and I'm going to split the transmission from the engine, put the transmission on a pallet and send it away to be inspected, and then we will deal with the motor.
What's this? Whoa! Hang on, sit. Homeless. Sit. Sit. Ooh. Just wait. Just wait. Good boy. Get it. Oh.
Yeah, look at the crud that just gets caught in there. Didn't help that inspection plate wasn't on there. It's on. Righto guys, so the engine is out and it has been cleaned up. It doesn't look in that bad a condition now that it is cleaned. We can confirm it is a 2006 model engine. We know it's not the original one because the crane is a 99 model. We're still not 100% sure whether it only has the 400 hours on it that was stated when I purchased it, or it has a lot more than that. And we won't find that information out until we get the engine stripped down and inspected. One of the other things that I'm a little bit concerned about is it has been started with Aero Start for a very long time. With using Aero Start to keep engines going or get them started, it does do internal damage to them and they do become addicted to it. So I'm going to need to remove all the components and the brackets on the front of the engine that house the hydraulic pump and the fan housing. They are not standard on these engines. That was manufactured by Franna to use this engine in the crane. And by removing all of that, that will give me access to take off the fuel pump and inspect that, because I found out the price to get this pump stripped down, inspected and rebuilt is the same price to buy a brand new pump from Perkins. And if you're wondering why there's an extra set of belts zip tied to this bracket on the front of the engine, that is very common when you have engines that have a lot of accessories mounted off the front of them, and you can't actually put new belts on it without pulling all that off. That way when you need to change them out, you just cut the old ones off, flick the new ones onto the pulleys, and you are ready to go again. It is an absolute nightmare to try and pull the front of these apart, or an engine like this, while they are in situ in a machine. So this saves a lot of time in the long run.
Chatty chat chat. Oh, and there's another one.
Leave that there because it can go with it. Okay, turn her up. So now with that out of the way, we'll get rid of those, get rid of that pulley, and we can then take off the water pump. Really?
Bolt.
But gush oil. Right, with all those parts removed, I can now start removing anything that is attached to the injector pump. First thing is going to be the electric lift pump. So this here is the shutdown solenoid that everybody on YouTube believes is the problem. We have put 3 of those on this pump. We have run auxiliary wiring from a new power source to that solenoid, and it made 0 difference. We also checked the voltage drop while we were cranking it over to make sure we weren't missing voltage from the stop solenoid or the fuel pump from the starter motor cranking the engine. That wasn't a problem. We had everything working in our favor. We did eliminate all of that in the very beginning. We also ran the auxiliary battery to run the pump and the shutdown solenoid. That made 0 difference. I know the wiring that attaches to it looks bad, but we did everything possible in order to eliminate the original wiring and the fuel shutdown solenoid as being a problem. If it was that simple, this crane would be running 6 months ago. One of the other things was this hose, this braided hose that connects the injectors. That is the return line back to the tank. The way to check those is you crimp the fuel line that is returning to the tank, so it then makes that circuit create pressure. It didn't leak. We had full pressure from the electric lift pump and we blanked the hose off and it didn't leak. So there's no air getting into the system here. rough as. Using nuts and spaces. Right, now we can take off that gear, those two bolts, slide the pump out. And puller, you go in there. If you can't get behind it, what you can do is turn that around, we'll undo those bolts that hold the pump in place. We might be able to just tap it through, maybe. Bracket holding weight against, I can't get it to move anymore. Righto, so I've got the pump off, I have given it a clean up, so it's going to be interesting to see what we find inside. I've never pulled one of these apart before, but I'll do my best to explain what everything is as we go through it. If I don't, I'm sure YouTube will correct me. This here is the main inlet from the electric lift pump. This is where the fuel enters the pump. These are the return through the injectors, returns back to the pump here, and then goes back to tank. Banjo bolt. So this is the check valve we got a few comments about, but it is clean down the inside and it is functioning correctly, so that's not the problem. And this is a little jet. This goes back into the top of the pump itself. There's nothing blocking that up. I've just blown air through it. Looking down the inside, it looks quite clean, so that isn't the problem. So you can see that is a distributor style fuel pump, 4 outlets for each different cylinder. Give that another clean. I'm going to clamp it in a vise and we're going to undo this. gauze filter in there. Perfectly clean. Little vane pump. Right on. So if I turn it upside down, those little veins will fall out. One. That's two. Right, so I've just removed the stock solenoid. It is in good condition. The plunger isn't damaged and it is still moving correctly. The port that it lives in is clean. There's no debris in there. So this is not the problem. So on a diesel, they don't have a throttle body that opens up to allow air into the engine. They have the pump. That's what controls its revs. So it's just open air straight from the turbo straight into the inlet. Diesels use the fuel, where petrols need fuel and air. When doing a compression test, someone commented the throttle body must be wide open. That is incorrect. Diesels don't have throttle bodies like a petrol does. Where on a petrol, you open the throttle body all the way and then you crank the car over when doing a compression test. Diesels is not the same because they are already fully open from the inlet manifold into the engine. That is not something you need to do. So this is your throttle, but underneath that there'll be a governor, which stops the engine from over revving. Nothing wrong with it. Everything works, there's no excess wear on the lobes. Hinge still works properly. Everything moves correctly. So as you can see, the pump shaft does have a Woodruff key machined into it, but the gear does not have a corresponding key slot. There was a comment left on the video to watch out for this, because if you are to undo that, say you're doing some service work and you don't catch that sort of a problem, or you're not aware of it, it is very easy to get the timing wrong for the pump. So the way it is set is when the pump is assembled, there is a locking bolt on the side of the pump, and there is a corresponding flat on the pump shaft itself. So when you buy the pump and install it, you leave that bolt alone until you've got your gear and your timing and everything correct. You do up the timing gear so it pulls hard onto that taper, and then you can undo that bolt, move this little tag out of the way and retighten the bolt. That has then unlocked the pump and it can now work correctly. A lot of people probably make the mistake of forgetting about that, and that will instantly damage the pump the second you turn the key or try and wind it over. That is a problem that someone pointed out. I had heard of it and now I'm seeing it. When the pump is assembled, the tag is up this way, which allows the bolt to be wound down further onto that flat. When you've got everything set up, you undo it, you push the tag down, because the hole in this end is much smaller, and it holds the bolt up a couple of mil, and you tighten it back up again. That has now unlocked the shaft so it can spin. So it is quite a simple idea, but it doesn't really make sense because a lot of pumps on the market, the majority of them do have a key machined into the shaft and the sprocket, so you can't get it wrong. There probably is a reason for it. I'm not yet aware of it. I am going to do some research to find out why it's done that way, but that's how that works. So you get the rest of this apart. So after inspecting the weights and the shaft, there is nothing obvious there as to why nothing was working. Everything is still in good condition. There aren't any scratches or score marks or rub marks that would indicate that there is something not doing what it is supposed to do. See how strong I am. Not that strong. That's pretty normal. They will move freely. They're not binding. Oh, I don't see anything wrong with that.
Okay. Do you think that was the problem?
If it doesn't move and push them out into place, it won't compress the fuel. It won't push the fuel in where it needs to go. Oh, it's moving. No, they look normal. Well, from what I understand of them. There looks to be a grub screw there. Oh, that doesn't. Righto guys, so I've got the pump pretty much entirely disassembled. One thing I did notice when removing the 4 dowels, the little plungers out of the end of the pump, 2 of them were quite tight, and I don't believe that's the way they are supposed to be. Diesel pumps are made to very, very precise tolerances, and any sort of binding within the pump is going to create issues. And looking closely at them, you can see that the surface layer, which will be a hardened layer, is actually starting to break down. So that could be creating the binding in the end of the pump. And looking down into the holes where those dowel plungers live, there is a little bit of scoring, which isn't going to help matters either. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and refit those plungers, those little dowels, back through the end of the pump and see if they bind up when I go to push them through. Right, what's he doing? Oh no, yeah.
Oh,
magpie.
that's different.
Yeah.
Okay, that worked nicely.
Turn it.
Yep. Ooh.
It stopped. Righto, so I am 100% sure that that is going to be the problem. What this is essentially a baby piston pump, and things have to move freely in order for the pump to do what it has to do. So because one of those dowels is sticking down inside its hole, the little guide roller that runs in the cam plate is not going around and being compressing the fuel and putting it back through the pump in order to start the engine. So just one of those dowels, those little plungers being tight, the pump isn't going to create pressure. But it's not only one hole that's bad, the opposite side of that hole is binding up as well. So that's 2 out of the 4 that aren't working correctly. But I am going to confirm this with my mate Glenn in the morning. Hopefully he's going to confirm what I've discovered. So I need to order a new pump from Perkins. I also need to send the transmission away and get it stripped and inspected, but that's going to take a couple of weeks. So you just have to keep your eye out for the next update when we move forward on the engine and removing the diffs out of the crane. Thanks for watching. How you going, guys? Curtis from Cutting Edge Engineering. So this is, what part is this? Straighten the bin.
Won't be using that one. Is that the turbo? It's so cute. There's no room to put a bigger one on there, is it?
Oh, unless we go high mount. Put one up here. Yo! Hey mate, what's happening?
My standard daily steez.
Alright, with all that stuff out of the way. Whoops.
Oh.
Fuck off, train. Fuck. I have given it a cleanup. Oh, fuck off.
Just exploded. Air out of somewhere?
Yeah, put a cap out of something. Oh, compressor.
Uh-oh. Oh my god, my soul left my body. That was horrible. You can see it's
how you
can
find if
see
there's
it
any
looks
grooves in
fine.
it. See, because it's so polished, I can't see the groove in
Oh,
it. So
yeah.
you do this.
Don't do that.
Oh,
Jesus.
extremely tight. Of course. Of course.
Oh my god.
Are you fucking serious? Of course. Of course not. Yep. How many different size everythings does there have to be on this?
Oh my god.
Why are there so many different sizes on these things? Of fucking course. Thank you very much for everyone commenting and emailing and messages and phone calls. And you'll have to keep an eye out for another video where, oh fuck me. You'll just have to keep an eye out for, and you'll have to keep an eye out, oh for fuck's sake. And you'll have to keep an eye out for the next video. Oh fuck. Fuck me. Help me out, dude. Don't sit there and watch me struggle.
I'm looking at the birds, they're so
Fuck
cute.
the birds. So you just have to keep your eye out for the next update when we move forward on the engine and removing the diffs out of the crane. Thanks for watching.
I don't know how to end it. Birds, birds. You're being very good right now.